Hello, everybody, for this exciting announcement for Roll20.
I'm Nolan T. Jones. I've been the Chief Executive Officer of Roll20, and I've been at the company as a co-founder and a co-owner for 10 years.
My name's Ankit. I have been with Roll20 for 6 months as president and for about a year as a board member.
Good.
Pregnant pause.
Yeah, I liked that. So yeah, that's why we're here. Nolan has recently announced his retirement, and Ankit, who has been here for 6 months as president, will be taking over as CEO. I wanted to take a little bit of time to get to know both of you, and I wanted to give you both the chance to talk about the future of Roll20.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, my name's Ankit. I've been working in the consumer tech industry for more than half a decade now. Before, I'm also a dad, a husband, kind of on the side. I'm a professor. I like to teach strategy and analytics. Personal hobbies, I like to run. I watch a lot of basketball, anything NBA, college basketball, etc.
Nolan, tell us about you.
Love sports. I play basketball and ice hockey currently. And I'd say the biggest thing, I'm a huge film nerd. I've got a degree in Japanese film. I spent my time during the pandemic thus far watching loads and loads of tokusatsu special effects programs like Kamen Rider. That's kind of my nonsense. But have been doing Roll20 for about 10 years now, and specifically been in charge as general manager and then chief executive starting 2017 till now. And not to bury the lead, but we're here today to talk about passing the baton. So
yeah. What are your experiences with games, especially prior to Roll20? Like, what were your experiences with, like, tabletop games, board games, any games like that? And then how did that influence bringing yourself into Roll20?
Yeah, with Roll20, I think the funny thing, and I've joked about this a lot in interviews with other folks, is how little experience my partners and I had with tabletop role-playing before we started Roll20. Riley Dutton, Richard Zayas, and I had played a little bit of 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and other than that, played board games, Settlers of Catan and stuff like that. But we knew we really liked the ability to storytell, the ability to kind of hang out in a different space and be cooperative. And so it really built a interest in us being able to do it long distance. And we looked at the other things that were out there at the time, and nothing really solved that for us. And so we've just kind of taken that and gone for a ride. So many of my memories coming out of the Kickstarter for Roll20 are about learning just how big the universe, the industry was, and kind of digging in and playing as many systems. We used to do kind of a will it blend style stream where we would just take systems and try to figure out how we could adapt them into Roll20 and play. And that's always been part of the fun of doing this, is, I don't know, seeing just how big the ocean is, and it's never ending. As people make more and more systems and come up with more and more ideas on how to do this. But if you ever needed encouragement that you don't have to be an expert to do it, we're shining examples, because we had very little idea. We just knew that it was important, that we liked it, and that we wanted to share it with others.
I love that. I love the idea that y'all played a little bit of 4th edition, and now, like, 10 years later, it's like this zeitgeist of, like...
I think it's really interesting to even just think about the ebbs and flows. Dungeons and Dragons was not the most popular brick and mortar role playing game when we came into the industry. It was Pathfinder at that point, and things like that change over time, and the way these things kind of ebb and flow. I find all of that really fascinating, being along for the ride, and getting to experience all of these games coming into their own.
Okay, I'm going to pop over to Ankit. Ankit, what are you playing right now? What did you play before Roll20? Like, tell me about your gaming experience.
Yeah, I'd kind of split it into a few phases. I remember when I was a kid, it was all the classic video games from regular Nintendo to 64, a lot of Xbox and Halo late nights. And when I got into college, actually, first introduction I got to D&D was probably freshman year of college. I remember we used to stay up late on Friday nights playing. I probably played maybe 3 or 4 times. I recall enjoying it, and then we kind of transitioned into board games because of scheduling issues. Since college, I've mostly been playing board games with my friends. And as I got reintroduced to Roll20, it's kind of been like a reintroduction of that freshman year college experience, where I'm kind of relearning D&D I'm relearning D&D, but also because Roll20 is such a big platform, trying to get into new systems and games. And I think that's been the most fascinating part.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of board games do you like?
Seven Wonders, Carcassonne,
Seven Wonders, yes.
Splendor, stuff where you can bring the community together. For me, board games is a way to connect with my family and, college friends. And anything that gets people around a coffee or kitchen table is the best way to play.
In starting it off, so much of our goal was it's so much better of a conversation piece than, traditional video games too. It really does allow you to hang out in a different way and to have much more real, much more personal interaction. And so, so much of that vibe of a virtual table that we're gathered around has been the driving force behind all this.
Yeah, you can absolutely see the looks on your friend's face when you devastate them, and that's really important to me. And I feel like that's something I don't really get in video games.
Yeah.
Same. I was going to say the creativity, the inside jokes, and the emotions. Yeah. And in my reintroduction to role-playing games, I found that kind of those 3 things are standing out most to me.
So good, so good. What? So we were talking about a passing of the torch here, and I do want to ask what surprised you the most, Ankit, about like the concept of Roll20 versus the reality once you stepped into running the company? When you stepped into like this idea of, I'm gonna be the dad. I didn't have a better word.
I think the biggest change is, I've been talking to the owners for a while, and when you talk to the owners, they kind of simplify it for you. They're like, it's this company, we have this product, it engages the community, and it just works. And I think before I came in, I almost simplified it in my head. It's a virtual tabletop. We have some games you can buy, and it works.
Right.
And when you get into it, the depth of the virtual tabletop, the depth of the marketplace, the variety, the features, how they work with each other, against each other. There's a lot of complexity that I underestimated as I walked in, and that I truly appreciate being 6 months into it now. But when you get into it and you see how hard the employees work, especially during COVID, where we saw a huge spike in people going on to Roll20 compared to in-person games, our engineering team, product team, marketing, customer experience, they all work really long hours trying to keep the service on as we deal with the volatility in usage. And the complexity that they dealt with to keep the service free for the last couple of years, it was a lot of work. And I think I underestimated that probably 10x being on the outside. When I was like in those initial discussions, I was like, yeah, internet, it works. COVID, sure, you had a little bit of a spike. And now I'm like, wow, to scale those servers and keep the lights on and keep gameplay going for hours at a time for each group, that was hard. And I really appreciate what Nolan and the team did there.
Yeah. So what surprised you about the concept of Roll20 versus the reality of Roll20, Nolan?
I mean, those first 5 years were so much, Richard Riley and I in trenches and doing, we didn't understand what product was. We just did it. We didn't understand what marketing was. We just did it. And moving and reacting and so many competitors constantly coming in and trying. It was an unestablished space. And so you've got all sorts of things just kind of blowing up in front of you. And then we get a little lead, and it becomes a different form of business. It becomes a different form of growth. It becomes a different form of risk management. And so they just feel like very different eras, and it just completely different. Learning all the stuff that was uniquely Roll20, and then learning all the stuff that was generalized business, generalized best practices, and marrying those things.
Yeah. Yeah, those first 5 years really feel like they really feel like selling lemonade at a lemonade stand in a world that doesn't have Minute Maid yet.
Yeah.
Like there's nobody can get lemonade pretty much. People have lemons and they have water and they have sugar, but they're like, oh, together in a cup?
What is this?
Interesting. And then now we are in a world where not only does, but we're still selling lemonade and honestly sampling a lot of lemonade, which is great.
No, it's a really interesting time. And I think one of the things that makes me feel really comfortable about what's next is in the 5 years that I was in charge, I was given a lot of room to make a lot of bets and to figure things out. And this feels like a place where we're safe to make some bets that, that it's a really good time to give a next leadership team a shot at deciding what the future of this all looks like and not overly meddle as a founder.
Yeah. Tell me about one of those bets, a milestone that you're like most proud of. I mean, there's been such a big transformation.
There's cool things in terms of, I really do look at dynamic lighting early on as a big thing. The character mancer later on is a big thing. Those were big moments, big evolutions, but so much of what I think about is people focused instead. I think about it either in terms of just like, I can look at once it became a thing that was both valued and not weird that we have a standing company culture meeting. That's something that I look at as special, and that didn't just happen. It took people, buying into that, building that up, and making that into something. Or on the other side, I look at early COVID, and I look at just how many people actively referred to us. How many of our users went out there and said, "Hey, come join me here. Come do something with me here," and things like that are just incredibly humbling.
Nolan and I joke about the fact that you could almost write a book about what Nolan's been through in the last 10 years and what it took to build a company up. But it's not just the company side. All those features that Nolan was talking about, the thing that really stuck with me is how passionate the community of Roll20 is and how much they care and how engaged they are. And I think seeing, for Nolan, it was about 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm looking at it on the other end, having not gone through it, saying, wow, there's this large, invigorated community. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've worked in like some pretty serious places. And by serious, I don't mean just like, like a suit and tie serious, but also like, wow, credentials. I'm not going to say I looked at your resume, but it does kind of feel at a glance like Roll20 might be a little bit of a cry from it. You know what I mean? Like almost a step in a different direction. Do you think that way? Do you think that it's a step in a different direction? What do you see yourself like really bringing to the table for Roll20?
When I joined Roll20, I saw a team that had just spent the last year or two trying to keep the lights on for our users for, during the pandemic. And that was hard work. And once again, I think that, we should all be thanking them for that. But because of the system and processes that Nolan and his executive team have built up, I think we're at the point where we can now get back to focusing on our users and our publishing partners. And what I'm most excited about is in the last couple of months, I think we've hit a transition point where we figured out how to keep the lights on and we can go back to very exciting user-facing features coming out.
Yeah. I want to brag a little bit here on Ankit. Riley and I met Ankit in maybe junior high.
Junior high.
Wow. Somebody that we've known for a long time. And obviously Riley and I went in a very different direction in terms of that we're, don't have as serious of academia, and went very entrepreneurial, right. In terms of what we were doing. Whereas Ankit went very Goldman Sachs, ClassPass and Google, very, what a background, but to be able to call him up throughout the process over the years and say, hey, we're kind of doing these things, we're going in these directions, what do you see? And getting the feedback from him that we were kind of beating the odds in terms of what we were able to do independent. And then for him to have an interest in coming and helping us with that has been I don't know. It's really cool. It feels really special and unique. And I think one of the things that any user of Roll20 out there looking at this and trying to figure out what any of this means, to Ankit's point, we've had to spend a lot of time in the past couple of years improving our development engineering focus and getting the way that Roll20 is written in code into a better place and how we interact with that in a better place. And now somebody with his background is able to come in and make certain that we're selecting the best things in terms of what users are interested in and prioritizing those properly and delivering them in the right time frames. And it's like we've built an engine, and now he's really gets to pick the direction that the car goes in a way that's really exciting. It's great timing to have somebody with his background.
I appreciate that. It's funny. I mean, it's no secret that Nolan and the other founders have known them for a while. And one of the things that's been helpful in this entire process, I'll share a side anecdote. A lot of us were in a debate or a speech and drama team in high school, and Nolan was kind of like the elder. And I recall being a very young student in high school, and Nolan just teaching me so many different angles about how to think, how to communicate, and how to express myself in a way that I hadn't before. And I feel like I'm almost blessed, X number of years after high school and college, to where I was lucky enough to get called upon to get to try to run the next iteration of this ship while continuing to get the benefit of the mentorship that I got even, 15, 20 years ago is amazing.
I feel so, you are so disciplined and such a voracious learner, and you are so good at facilitating that for others. All of that reflected back to you. Like I can't describe how lucky Richard, Riley, and I have all felt about your interest in this, and that has been an ongoing thing, and that it only got deeper.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
This is really interesting to listen to, because it actually sounds like, from the way you two are talking about each other, that you kind of mentored each other. Like neither one of you can really decide on who the true mentor is.
I think we went very different paths.
I think Nolan mentored me a lot.
Ankit, I want to ask you this question. If you think the roles were reversed 10 years ago, how much different do you think things would be?
I don't think I could have built this business in the way that Nolan, Riley, and Richard have. There's no way. I've heard the early stories. I saw it from the outside as a friend, kind of once or twice a year. Their intense focus on users and shipping product and being able to engage the community. They had a special skill set that I find rare. I think Nolan referred to it as beating the odds. So I think we're all lucky in the community, and I am lucky that those three ran it, because I don't think it would have been this developed at this stage.
Yeah, it feels like kismet.
Nolan, Riley, and Richard started a product, which I probably couldn't have done. But I do have a lot of experience from other companies and running a company, building upon something that was already there and trying to take it to the next level. And I'm hoping I could bring in some of those outside experiences to help get Roll20 to the next level, both for our users, publishers, and the company internally as well.
Very cool. What about you, Nolan? I want to ask real quick, why do you think Ankit turned out to be the best person for the job?
I think that we were very fortunate in the interviewing that we've been able to do over the past couple of years, the reinvestment that we've been able to do in terms of personnel. And I want to say, and no offense, Ankit, some of it is about a team too. And I think one of the things that you look at in terms of what we've got right now in a chief financial officer in Austin Kelly, what we've got in chief technology officer Morgan Buck, what we've got in chief operating officer Corey Roseman, we've assembled a group that I think covers all the many things that need to happen here. And I think what Ankit is as an indicator in that is kind of a declaration of how we want to interact with our product to build our product and to keep that as a focus. And then also the ability to have conversations at all levels with other businesses about what teaming up in the future looks like too. And that's something, I know that can probably sound coy to people, but I think one of the great things is like, it is truly undecided right now. in terms of what some of the industry is in a really interesting place right now because it's got a lot of attention, and I think it's growing. And I think one of the things that's great is that we're able to have conversations with established players and new players into the space. And Ankit's really good at holding that connective tissue, keeping those things well aligned, telling the story, and getting it. And that's a special skill set. I think that we're very, very fortunate in terms of how timing has worked out here. When I said I was going to do this for about 5 years before I went off to go do movies, I did not predict a global pandemic and all of the wild. That
said, you still had that timer on. You were like, I'm not kidding.
Well, and I think that's something.
I gotta go.
You know, I will say there's definitely a part of me that for any Doctor Who fans out there, I feel like the David Tennant at the end of the run. I don't want to go. There's definitely a part of this where there's so many cool folks involved and so many cool things happening that it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm stepping away in that. But you know, I made a promise to myself in terms of film and making certain that was something I was going to get to. Go back. There's dozens and dozens of interviews where I've said, eventually I'm going to do it. I was serious the whole time. But the other thing is, I really do think that since so much of what I was doing was de-risking focused and getting this to a point that it could operate outside of the founders, that the most important thing is, like, in a moment where it's safe and intelligent to do that, to do it. And I know that there are other founders who think that's kind of wild, but you know, I want to see Roll20 as something that is beyond Richard Riley and I, and that was the intent of all of us. I didn't stay here to run it forever. I stayed here to get it to a point that it could do most of its operating outside of us. And you know, I'm happy to stay. I'm proud to be a co-owner. I'm proud to be on the board. I'm proud to do some advising here and there, but I'm also really proud to watch other people take it and run with it in directions that I never could. So I don't know. It's time. So here it is.
Yeah. Ankit, you could tell me, is there any features that are coming out this year that you're like really excited about, or any secrets?
There are a lot of features that I'm excited about, but I don't want to steal product or marketing's thunder from them going out. I will say, though, that if you're a user, you know, we are paying very close attention to your feedback on our forums, and we plan to address some of the largest, most upvoted items very soon.
Fine. I feel like that's a very diplomatic answer, so I will DM you later to see what I can leak online. But we are going to go ahead and wrap up. This has been a great chat with y'all. I've never seen the two of you like really get excited about something like this, and so that was like a real treat for me. But just so everybody knows, Nolan, you want to go ahead and do a sign off?
Sure. I was Nolan T. Jones. I'm the outgoing Chief Executive Officer of Roll20, continuing as a co-founder and co-owner. I'm really excited to see what Ankit and the team have in store. I've seen some of the roadmap, and I do think users are going to be really excited. I'm excited to see the community from a different angle, and I'm excited after 10 years to helping all of you tell stories to maybe go and do some on my own. Don't be a stranger, folks. I really I love this community. We'll always love this community. Be in touch.
Ankit?
I guess I'm Ankit Lal, and I am the incoming CEO. From my perspective, I'd say we really appreciate both community and publisher feedback. Keep sending it to us. We are listening. Also, bear with us. We get a lot of it, and we are doing our best to get it all sent and done and back to you in a good way. But, be on the lookout for some exciting new features and launches coming up very, very soon.
All right. And I've been TK Johnson, your resident customer lifecycle specialist. I guess stay tuned for more stuff about what's coming up and what's new with Roll20. We've got a lot of really exciting announcements. So we'll see you later. Wave, everybody.